Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Gunnerblog. James, another goodly morning to you.
Another one. Racking them up now.
Not bad.
Not bad. I could get used to this.
Yeah.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I've got a coffee. I've got a biscuit. I've got your company to talk about another Arsenal win. Could be worse.
You're living the dream right now. What sort of biscuit?
A ginger type thing. Not like a ginger nut, but like something a bit more fancy than...
A posh equivalent.
Yeah, one of those sort of, Tesco... What's their kind of refined...
Finest. Tesco finest.
That's it. Yeah, it's one of theirs, and it's very nice. So
fantastic. Yeah, you are living the dream right now.
Yeah.
As are we all. Top of the Premier League.
Not bad, is it? Not bad. Could get used to it.
Well, long may it continue. Another good weekend. I mean, not necessarily a weekend where, like the previous one, all the results went as we would have dreamt or desired it, but we did our job.
We did. I mean, that's the thing, weekends like last weekend, you've got to take advantage when the other teams drop points, and then weekends like this one, you've got to do your job just to sort of maintain the status quo or the gap that you have, and we've done that. We're a very quietly professional, efficient, no nonsense kind of team so far this season. There's not a lot going on. Sometimes we've sat down to do this podcast and it's like, oh God, we've got to discuss this crazy decision or that crazy thing that happened or whatever. It seems to be like low fuss so far, and I like it, I have to say. I like it.
Yes, Arsenal is a club, in its recent history, I think it's had quite a strong association with drama, right?
Yeah.
It's felt a bit like a soap opera at times, on and off the pitch. And this is very drama-free.
What's the opposite of a soap opera?
Exactly. It wouldn't win any soap awards, but it's thoroughly satisfying as a supporter.
I think my doing the player ratings on Arseblog News for the last month, all I've been able to write about David Raya is didn't have a lot to do. And
yeah, he is coasting to that Golden Glove right now.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm being facetious because, of course, I recognise the part he plays in the organisation of the back five and claiming crosses and all sorts of things. But he may be on for a record all of his own in terms of most clean sheets, versus number of saves actually required.
Yeah.
I think the summer we bought him, or loaned him, I should say, from Brentford, I think he'd made more saves cumulatively that season than any other goalkeeper in the Premier League. So he's earned this respite, I think.
Yes, I think he has. I mean, the involvement he has is quite minimal from a saving shots on goal perspective, because we had another game where the opposition did not have a shot on target. I haven't heard back from the dubious shot on target committee about Eddie Nketiah's last week, so it does stand in the record books, the statistics book, so it makes it one shot on target. But of course, we don't accept that. We don't.
No,
we don't believe that was a shot on target.
That.
No, we refuse. We will always refuse.
It's a travesty.
It is.
It's a miscarriage of justice.
It is.
We actually had a question from Nard in the Bay, who said, I had a weird feeling during the match prior to the Edwards free kick, which you may recall was in stoppage time, I think, in the second half. I found myself on edge and nervous that it would be a shot on target, not a goal. Can you relate to this feeling? Has this Arsenal team broken your brain as well?
I sort of know where he's coming from there, because you get to that point and you kind of go, I know this is essentially, it's meaningless, right? Essentially, because the game is won, the 3 points are the most important thing. But there was part of me going, don't get a shot on target just because.
Yeah.
I had an email actually from someone called Michael Lee, and Michael is from New York, and he said, over the last couple of seasons, when it's late in the game, we're winning 2 or 3-0, the main thing I I care about is the clean sheet. But this year our defence is so dominant and clean sheets are so common. What I really care about is no shots on target. He said, we need a term like clean sheets, but for no shots on target. He said, here are some ideas. I'd love your thoughts. Perfect sheet, spotless sheet, pure sheet, immaculate sheet, cleaner sheet. He says a no shotty, which is very American, a keeper sleeper. You know, and this is clearly where people are going with this stuff at this point in the season. You know, again, without getting too carried away with it, the parameters have been adjusted a little bit, haven't they?
Yeah, I quite like spotless sheet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, ultimately what he's saying is he wants to be able to shine a UV light on that sheet and walk away satisfied.
Unlike someone from crime or CSI going into a seedy hotel room in Florida look at all the stuff that the UV light has shown up. Well, could we call it like remember in Train Spotting, if you've seen the movie Train Spotting, there's a moment where one of the characters, I think it's Spud, wakes up in either his girlfriend's house or something the next morning, and because of the consumption of drugs that he's had the night before, he wakes up to a very not clean sheet. It is a bespoiled sheet, without wanting to go into too much details. So can we call it a reverse Spud or something like that?
Or reverse Spud.
Yeah.
Perhaps so, yeah. I think it's his in-laws' house.
Yeah.
It's not a pretty scene.
No.
It's very much the opposite of the sheets we've got. So yeah, a reverse Spud will do for me. I mean, it is absurd, really. It's that they're almost not. I mean, I don't wish to downplay Arsenal's victories here. I know they're hard fought and hard won, but you couldn't call them a contest, some of them, in any real sense, because Arsenal very literally are keeping the opposition at arm's length. Mm-hmm. Well, more than a very long arm at that, 18 yards or so, basically.
That is a long arm.
And yeah, it is a very long arm. And David Raya, yeah, I mean, he's having a whale of a time back there, you would think. I mean, that Edwards shot, by the way, which hit the post, if it's on target, it is in, I would say. I think he's probably beaten on it. But so maybe that's the only way to score against Arsenal right now, direct free kicks. We saw Szoboszlai do it.
Yeah.
If you're in opposition, if you're the Sunderland manager or the Slavia Prague manager right now, you'd have a big direct free kick session, I think, during the training preparation.
Well, I mean, that requires you to get one. We're pretty solid defensively. I know there was
true,
you know, a tackle by Gabriel, and he got a yellow card for it in the end. He went sliding in. It's maybe because they're so desperate to keep another clean sheet, you know, that they're throwing their bodies on the line in the 94th minute or whatever it is to try and stop a shot, or maybe they're talking about the shots on target as well. But it's very impressive. Very impressive, very efficient, very professional from Arsenal. So, I mean, let's get into the game and talk about how it played out, because the opening part, you could see exactly how Burnley were set up, because they got men behind the ball, as you would expect. And they said, well, they didn't say it, but you could see the way they played. When Gabriel and Saliba had the ball, they were like, okay, you have the ball. That's fine.
Yeah.
But as soon as the ball went wide, whether it was to the fullback or whether it was to one of the wingers, they sprinted out really, really quickly. So they were content for Arsenal to have it in central areas, but they wanted to make sure that we were not able to stretch the pitch, you know, because that's how you try and deal with these low blocks. So, you know, as a tactical plan, I think, well, for 14 minutes or so, it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they had, 5 defenders on the pitch. They clearly set out with a game plan, as you say, to kind of trigger their press at certain moments and make life hard for us. But, without wishing to repeat ourselves, Andrew, a set piece opens the game up for Arsenal.
Yeah.
And it's happening time and time again. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's got a point of view on it.
Do they?
But nobody seems able to stop it.
Well, listen, I because we haven't had the live blog running for the last couple of games as we try and fix it up technically. It serves as my reminder for the game. When we sit here and we do the pod, I often have the live blog open, so it gives me this record of the game and the bits and pieces that happened. But I had to do it old school. I had to sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and write stuff. And I don't know about you, but because I type all the time now, my handwriting is like, what did I write there?
Hieroglyphs.
It is essentially hieroglyphics, but I've worked it out. I've used the AI of my mind to work it all out. And
how high tech of you?
I know, amazing. Actual intelligence, I think they call it, rather than artificial. But anyway, 10 minutes I wrote, this is going to be tough because of the way Burnley were well organised. They were tough and they did make it difficult for us. And I was thinking, it's one of those games that if it gets to 20 minutes, then 30 minutes and you don't score, it starts to get frustrating when a team plays like this. But then we get the corner and it's like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Declan Rice stands over it. Gabriel's at the back post. And there's Viktor Gyokeres to just knock it home from close range. It must feel like that for the opposition. And, this is a slight take on what they've been doing on Spanish television. Phil Costa noted this last year that, when Arsenal get a corner, sometimes the commentators go, Jung, Jung. Jung, 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 jung. Because it feels inevitable that the great white shark of Arsenal are going to come up from the depths and score a goal. If that's not mixing my metaphors too much.
Yeah, and Baba Yaga Gunner got in touch to say, is it finally time for the Emirates crowd to begin humming the theme song from Jaws every time we win a corner? It is.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to coordinate, I think.
I think it is, yeah.
I'd like to see us give it a go. We might need a conductor. We might need someone to stand at the front of the North Bank with a baton. If there's anyone willing, do come forward. But I don't really know what to say that we haven't already said about Declan Rice's delivery, Gabriel's desire to get to the ball, his timing. Leandro Trossard, I think, plays his part, at the back post, sort of making a nuisance of himself, doing a bit of kind of Ben White antics almost, just kind of dragging markers away and getting them involved in tomfoolery. But yeah, I mean, it's just exemplary. And as I say, everyone knows about it. Everyone's talking about it. Nobody seems to be able to stop it. No,
and they couldn't and they didn't. And it was 1-0 and Viktor Gyokeres was there and scored the goal. And I think, some of the other things I noticed in this first half was, we're talking about clean sheets and not allowing shots on target and all of that kind of stuff. But, it's a consequence of how hard this team works, not just defensively, but all over the pitch. And you can see the minute the ball sort of is in any kind of transition or it breaks down, how quickly the Arsenal players react to get the ball back or to keep possession, and that was evident in that first half. I think this first half was quietly one of the best first halves we've had this season so far, not just because of what we did, but how well we controlled the game, but also how hard we worked. And I think it is worth pointing out that keeping the opposition at arm's length the way we do is a real collective effort. And it takes a lot of hard work and it takes a lot of organisation and defensive discipline. But, you see players like Eze, like Gyokeres, like Saka, like Trossard even. As soon as the ball is there to be won in midfield or in the wide areas, they're snapping into the tackles, like straight away. And I think that's just such an impressive and maybe underappreciated part of what makes this team as good as it is, or as good as the start of this season has been, is literally these players just working their fucking bollocks off.
I think so, yeah. And it starts at the front, goes all the way through the team. I think as well, when you're winning and when you're keeping clean sheets, there is a kind of momentum to that where there's a desperation and a desire to keep that going. And Arsenal are just a team on a roll at this point in time. They are a machine, I think that is the right word for this team in terms of the level of organisation, commitment. They are a machine, and they are very difficult to dismantle. And every single player on the pitch plays their part in that. And Gyokeres, I thought, whether it was the rest in midweek or whether it was an early goal ending a run of Premier League games in which he hadn't scored, had a fantastic 45 minutes. Maybe his best 45 minutes in an Arsenal shirt.
I agree. I think I texted that to you at half-time. I think it was...
I know, and I've co-opted that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think it was, though. It was really, really impressive from Gyokeres. And, he was involved not just in the goals. We can talk about the second goal now in a minute, but he made chances for others as well, There was a chance for Bukayo Saka.
In Saka.
Yeah, I mean, that first one in particular, I think Bukayo Saka will be the most disappointed person, obviously, because he knows from that kind of position he should be able to finish from there. But it's great play from Gyokeres to set up that chance.
Really good centre-forward play, just kind of taking the ball and turning it around the corner. I mean, that's the thing. You say this was one of our better halves, and I agree. And although we did get the opener from a set piece, we created quite a few chances in open play. There was that one where Saka went through and shot on his left. I agree. He'll probably think he should do better there. There was another great move with about half an hour play. Declan Rice receiving the ball under pressure, giving it to Eze, who found Gyokeres, who again played in Saka, this time shot with his right foot. I actually made this a pretty good save for the Burnley keeper.
Yeah.
He gets a hand up. I think he sort of anticipates this ball going across goal and dives almost the wrong way, but then gets a hand up to stop it. And then Trossard, really unlucky on the follow-up. I mean, a smart attempt to fire the ball between the Burnley defenders, but they blocked it right on the line. Yeah.
I mean, it was dominant from an Arsenal perspective. I think, in terms of XG, Burnley had none because they didn't even have a shot in the first half, and we were at 2.4, something like that. And of course, 2-0 up through Declan Rice with the second goal. This came from a Burnley long throw, which Gabriel is just amazingly committed defending from Gabriel. He sort of runs from miles away and leaps and heads the ball away, and Saka heads it on then to Gyokeres, who produces a pass which has got people talking, I think, because some people think he was trying to play it to Eze. It looks like an amazing crossfield pass. I don't want to really delve into whether he meant it for Eze or Trossard or not, but I think it turned out brilliantly and it looked great. That's as much as I think we need to say.
Yeah, it looked great. It also looked a bit unusual, so I can understand the debate. I originally thought, wow, what a pass. He's fizzed that one out to Trossard. Having seen it from a different angle, I'm like, he might have been looking for Eze, who's making a run through the middle of the pitch. To be honest with you, I think rather than microanalyze the pass, maybe what's more interesting is to look at the run. The speed on the break. We spoke last week about him lacking maybe that bit of acceleration or separation from defenders. And I do think he looked much better for having that midweek completely off.
Yeah.
And when Arsenal break, and we know that he can be so dangerous in those transition moments, he really did play his part. By the way, I think it was Gabriel, I think won 2 consecutive headers, because I think it was 2 long throws back-to-back from Burnley.
Yeah.
First one he cleared away, and then the second one as well. And it's just a beautiful goal, this, actually. Like, once it gets out to Trossard, the way he clips that cross into the box, and Declan Rice times his run to perfection, heads it back across into the far corner. Really, really lovely goal.
No, it really is. I mean, the one thing I will say about the pass from Gyokeres is that if you are looking for Eze in that moment, you don't hit the ball the way he hit it. It was sort of laces, whereas if you were looking to curl that into the path of Eze, you'd be, using your instep. So I'm going to give him credit for the pass because it was brilliant. Trossard, very, very good down the left-hand side, stood up the cross. Declan Rice is there. And you look at the ground that Declan Rice covered for this goal as well. When the ball breaks, I'm just looking here. He's in just on the edge of our box, as the ball breaks out to Gyokeres. And Yeah, I mean, that's what you get. You get rewarded for the commitment. You get rewarded for the effort to get into the box. And it's good. He's looking around. I mean, there's a last-minute attempt from one of the Burnley defenders to get near him, but basically they've left him alone. It's a very good header as well, isn't it? You know, puts some power on it, beats the keeper, 2-0. And I don't think you could argue that that's any less than Arsenal deserved.
No, not at all. I thought it was excellent. And I can't find it just now. But there was a quip from somebody saying, are we taking it too far? Now we're scoring from opposition set pieces as well as our own. Yes, it was Palm Tree on Blue Sky. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, again, there's this discourse around set pieces. But if you look at our last couple of games, I thought the goal that Ranieri scored against Brighton was a really beautiful goal. I thought this Rice header was fantastic, a brilliant end-to-end move. So I think Arsenal are delivering a bit of a riposte to that sentiment,
sure,
and scoring some pretty impressive open play goals.
I agree. And look, it was a very good first half from Gyokeres, so it was a bit disappointing then that he had to go off at the break. Mikel Arteta said afterwards he reported a little muscular niggle. So do you think it's possible that at this moment in time, given the absences we have in the forward line, you know, Havertz, Madueke, Martinelli, Jesus, Odegaard, that the players are being told, listen, the minute you feel anything, particularly the forward players, the minute you feel anything, you've got to let us know. Don't try and play through any kind of pain because, you know, we have to be completely risk averse, at least with our forwards, because I'm not saying we're down to bare bones, but the options aren't really there at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think especially at 2-0 up, you know, at Burnley, you're in a commanding position where if you don't need to take chances, you don't have to. It's in a funny sort of way. I wonder... I almost feel like how well Gyokeres played could have played into the decision to withdraw him, in that, like, look, he's had a great half. He looks sharp. He looks like a player we don't want to lose for any stretch of time right now. So let's get him off. Equally, when the games come as quickly as they do right now, it doesn't have to be a big injury or a major injury to make you miss some matches.
Sure.
And, you know, we played Saturday afternoon, we played Tuesday, virtually afternoon. However much of a precaution it may have been, you'd have to still think there's a chance he might miss at least one game just because it's right around the corner. Yeah.
I mean, I think if there's any risk at all, you just leave him at home for the trip to Slavia Prague. You know, there are options, and I think I have some questions about potential options, so we can do those in part two. But going into what I think is going to be another very tough away game against Sunderland next weekend, that really feels like the kind of game where you need someone like Gyokeres, because it's going to be hard fought, it's going to be very physical, and not dissimilar from the Burnley game in terms of, you know, the challenge that we face against a newly promoted team, albeit one that's doing very, very well so far in the Premier League this season. So I would imagine if there's any risk, they'll just say, no, hang on, let's do something else for Slavia Prague. What we did on Saturday, obviously, was bring on Mikel Merino, who has played there. And listen, I've said before, I like Mikel Merino. I think he's a really good member of this squad, a valuable member of the squad. But I think we very obviously missed what Gyokeres brought to that first half in the second half. And part of it might have been, listen, we're 2-0 up. We can control this game. We can keep the opposition at bay. We don't have to risk anything. But it was noticeable, wasn't it? The difference between the first half and the second half. From an Arsenal attacking perspective, we really didn't create very much in that second half. Whether we needed to or not, that's a debate, or that's a conversation we can have. And I'm not putting it, all down to Mikel Merino, but I think it was obvious when Gyokeres went off, we lost a bit of forward momentum.
Definitely. And I saw moments on the pitch where players looked up, I think, hoping to play a pass into the channels or in behind, and there wasn't necessarily a run there because that's not Mikel Merino's forte. And I think, Arteta was quite critical, wasn't he, of our second half performance? I was maybe less so. Like I saw this as a case of, being in control of a game, holding the opposition, as I say, at arm's length. It's not like we came under significant defensive pressure or David Raya was forced into a series of saves. To be honest with you, as soon as that substitution was made, I thought, well, there's a bit of a chance that this second half becomes a write-off in a way, a bit of a non-event. And actually, I think to Arsenal's credit, certainly defensively, that's kind of what it was. I mean, it was game over at half-time, as far as I could see.
Yeah, I think, if we got another goal in that first half, if it was 3-0 at half-time, I don't think Arteta would be too bothered about the second half at all. The fact that it's 2-0, one moment leaves you on a nice edge.
Most dangerous lead in football, of course.
Well, yes, of course, unless, you're this version of Arsenal. He talked about, we dropped the standards, which I guess, might be the case, but we also missed, probably our best player in the first half and somebody who plays that centre-forward role very differently from Mikel Merino, as well as that.
I also wonder as well, to what extent that's just a bit of managerial shenanigans. He's looking at a week of 3 fixtures, Burnley, Slavia Prague and Sunderland. None of them are marquee games. They're all games Arsenal might expect to win, and he might just be looking for the kind of marginal gain of like, how can I refocus these players' minds? How can I ensure that despite this being a relatively routine win, they are concentrated ahead of Prague, ahead of Sunderland? Is that second half just an opportunity for a bit of messaging and sharpening of minds? Sure. I do wonder if that might have been in his thoughts.
Maybe so. I mean, I think ultimately, as you say, it was essentially a non-event. It was a thing that happened in the universe in which we all live. But beyond that sort of free kick towards the end, I'm really struggling to think of anything that happened of note in that second half. Burnley made changes. They tried to get back into it. Last 15, 20 minutes, they started to press a bit higher. They needed to get some goals, so they took a bit of a chance. I don't think Arsenal were able to, use the bit of space that they left particularly well, but then we didn't need to. I think the main thing I would take away from the second half was that Declan Rice cemented his first half performance, which was really good, a goal and I guess a pre-assist you can call it, but a brilliant set-piece delivery, with one of those sort of whenever the ball was sort of slightly potentially dangerous from a Burnley perspective, he just seemed to be there. I don't quite know how he did it, but, he's there to make a challenge. He's there to make a tackle. He nicks in and takes the ball away. He makes clearances. I thought he was absolutely outstanding in the first half, obviously, but I also thought his second half performance was brilliant too. And that was the thing that stood out for me in that second half, because we did make changes. I think in Capier and when Eri came on for Calafiori and Eze, Burnley made a load of changes, didn't really make any difference to them. But the player that stood out for me in that second half was Rice, and the amount of ground that he covered, and the fact that, it ties back into what I was saying earlier on about how hard these players work. There was no resting on his laurels in any way. He's just, I don't know, what do they call him? Did he say they call him the horse? Because he sort of, he's just running all the time. I mean, he was brilliant in that second half. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and he was kind of the guy who stayed on, right? So Mendy and Eze in the midfield both came off. Trossard, Gyokeres both came off as well. Rice was there for the full 90 minutes and I thought gave, a complete performance. Defensively outstanding, ball carrying, scored, created the opening goal with the set piece. It was a monumental display from him, really, and I thought a clear man of the match. He is a fantastic player, and we are very, very lucky that we have him.
Yes. So, 2-0, clean sheet, no shots. Is it easy to start taking this for granted a little bit? That this could become,
Maybe. It felt very routine. I
sort
of sat down with my editor before the game. I had an editor from The Athletic working, and he was like, I reckon we'll get a routine 2-0 win here, goal from a set piece and a clean sheet. And at the end of the game, I sort of was able to go back to him and say, yeah, you called that spot on. This was kind of exactly as AI or actual intelligence might have predicted it, right?
EI.
Played out like...
Editor
yes,
intelligence,
indeed.
I guess.
It played out exactly in that fashion. And I think we could start to take it for granted because it felt... I used the word machine. We are just in a rhythm of doing this right now. I have to be honest and say there doesn't appear to be any obvious sign of it slowing or stopping. But then I guess the story of past seasons and football previously is that there often doesn't until there very much is. Yeah,
you keep going until you get stopped somewhere along the way. And that's why I do actually think it is important that while it does feel routine, and I think the headline I used on the blog on Sunday was like cruise control. You felt like Arsenal, if we really needed to, could go up another gear or two or three. Like if we needed to, you could see how we could try and up the ante a bit. But we didn't need to. And, again, it's hard work and it's commitment from all of these players to make it look as routine as it does. But I do think it is worth appreciating because... it won't always be as good as this. One day, James, the opposition are going to get a shot on target and we'll all be sad. So I think while...
Will it still be a goodly morning if they have a shot on target?
Yeah, we're going to have to readjust the parameters of goodly mornings as well. They had a shot on target. We won 5-0, but they had a shot on target. Yeah. What are we talking about here? I think it is worth appreciating that what we're doing right now and the way we're playing and the way we are winning games, I mean this in the sort of the bigger picture. I'm not talking specifically about, set pieces or anything like that. It's not normal. I don't think it's normal, right? Because this is the best defensive start that Arsenal have ever had to a season. So it's not normal. It's out of the ordinary. And I think it is worth appreciating and just taking a moment to step back, after a game like this. Don't assume it's always going to be like this, but appreciate it for what it is right now because it's just so impressive. It's, as you say, machine or cruise control or momentum, all of these things. It's brilliant to be experiencing this. I remember... in the past, we've had great teams and I've sort of looked back and thought, you know what, I haven't always taken the time because it's also outcome based, right? Whether you win the title or whether you don't win the title, that your experience of it is sort of tied to how the season plays out. But during the season, there are times where you can say, actually, this is great. I love this. I love what we're doing. And I hope we can keep it going. But, until such time as we have to talk about something else, I love this team. I love what it's doing and I love how they're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, there has been and there may continue to be some criticism of this team externally. And to an extent, I can understand that. I think as a neutral, whoever is a neutral, what is a neutral? But as someone who's not involved in the title race, you want... I suppose we started the show talking about the absence of drama, right? And the TV companies and the neutrals, inverted commas, they want drama. And Arsenal, the way they're playing right now, have kind of eliminated that. I mean, people want end-to-end. They want goals going in at both ends of the pitch. Well, that doesn't happen in our games. So I think we are going to get some criticism and take some stick and not necessarily be, the nation's darling. But what's really great is that what I'm seeing online and, in the stands from Arsenal fans is taking a real pride in the way that this team is playing and the way in which they are defending and celebrating those aspects of the team. And I think as a supporter, as a fan, that's absolutely the right position to take. And listen, if it gets on everyone else's tits, then frankly,
fuck them.
That's fine by me.
Yeah. No, but I mean, that's the thing. They're literally having to invent things to sort of try and create drama around Arsenal. And we, as you said, we have been guilty of maybe creating drama ourselves and falling victim to some of that drama. But now it's like, are they, is it the set piece thing, whatever it might be, or they're boring or whatever. I don't find this boring, I have to say. I really don't. This is sort of my ideal scenario. Tim wrote a great column about this as well a couple of weeks ago, by the way, where if Arsenal are pissing people off, he's, very, very happy with that because that's sort of part of his Arsenal heritage. But I think there is something to that people might dismiss it as boring. They might dismiss it as whatever. But, we have experienced the criticism when people say, well, when are Arsenal going to learn? When will they ever learn about this? When will they learn about that? When will they become more efficient? When will they stop pressing that self-destruct button, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And now that we've done that, they don't really have anything to have a go at us for. So they make stuff up about set pieces or whatever it is, So for me, it's just very, very enjoyable. And going into games, I can remember not too long ago, I remember a podcast we did. It might have been end of Emery, end of Wenger, or early Arteta. I can't remember exactly when. Or sort of making the observation, there used to be a time you could look at the fixture list and feel confident that Arsenal, right, we're going to win that game. We're going to win that game. We're going to win that game. And there was a point where you're going, I don't know. I don't know if we can win that. I don't know if we can beat that team, and that's not a good place to be. This is a far better place to be, for me anyway. The less drama, the better, I think.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, what is a machine? Well, a good machine is reliable, is systematic, is perfectly honed for the completion of its task. And that's what this team looks to be right now. It has all its parts working together in perfect unison. I could stretch this analogy as far as you like, to be honest. Yeah. We're just very good. We're just very good.
Like Terminator?
Yeah. Yeah, I should have mentioned it's that sort of machine.
Yeah, we're that sort of machine. So just look.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because, Man City win again yesterday. Erling Haaland produces his robot celebration. We've got the robot versus the machine potentially in the title race.
Yeah.
It's all taking shape. And I think as well, like your point about don't take it for granted, it was interesting sort of looking back, 8 wins from 10 at this point, looking back and seeing sort of which sides have done that previously and the extent to which they went on to win the league or not. And what you see actually is that it comes with no guarantees. I think it was like 4 of the 7 teams in the Premier League era who've kind of reached that many points at this stage didn't go on and do it, including ourselves in 2022-23. So that is a bit of a, it's just a sort of a bit something to give you a bit of caution, isn't it? And like you say, appreciate it and not take it for granted, because there are no guarantees that this will necessarily continue. Although,
for sure,
I there's a great foundation, and I have confidence that it will. But you just never know.
Well, listen, I don't think internally the messaging is going to be anything other than, yep, great start. That's it. That's it. You know, after 3 second place finishes, there is literally no way that Mikel Arteta is going to allow this team or any of his players to believe that it's anything close to being done and dusted at this point, because obviously there's still such a long way to go. But I think the experience of being runner-up 3 years in a row comes with a world of pain that they don't want to experience again, you know? So I think what we're seeing maybe is a reaction to those runners-up seasons, you know, that this season feels like, so far anyway, we do not want that again. We don't want that again. And we will work hard and control games and do things with a minimum of fuss and won't get distracted. You know, Arsenal are too emotional. Remember that? We're not anymore. We're not too emotional at all. True. You know, we are mature. Is that the right way of putting it? I don't know, but we are ultra focused and ultra determined to go one better. I think you can see that in the way the team is set up, by what we did during the summer, by the way we're playing, by the way we're talking. You know, the manager and the players, you know, when you hear them talk, there's nobody's getting carried away. Nobody's taking anything for granted. And it's going to be a case of, right, one more down, next, one more down, next. You know? Yeah.
The supporters too, by the way. I think supporters are being very circumspect in the way that they're discussing Arsenal's kind of title credentials. And I completely understand that, given the recent history. I think as well, you know, something that was evident in this game, wasn't it, was the way Arsenal chased back, you know, even at 2-0 up, the way they fought to protect their goal. I think that they are playing and operating like a team who understand that every minute of this Premier League season could matter. And from first until last, their commitment does not waver.
No.
And, you know, things change. You know, a bad result, a bad injury, touch wood, none of these things happen, but things can swing in football very quickly. We've experienced that ourselves. If you look at where Liverpool were a few weeks ago and where they are now. But I think you're right to say let's enjoy it for the time being. This is an outstanding run of form. Arsenal are doing something really remarkable in the defensive part of the pitch. And yeah, let's enjoy it.
Let's enjoy it, because the consequence of that is 3 points. And that's 9 wins in a row, 5 wins in a row in the Premier League. If either of us had a mountain of hair, this would have been a great day. Would have been a great day. But we don't.
That's true.
We don't, that is true. Unfortunately.
I will... what shall I promise? I feel like there's got to be something about, you know, I will grow that haircut if Arsenal concede the very best shot on target. Yeah.
Well, listen, you know, if we were capable of that, we would make that commitment to help the cause. But anyway.
Well, we can rest easy in the knowledge.
I think so. All right, let's leave it there for part 1. We will be back with your questions and more in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part 2 of the show where we answer the questions that you sent to us on Blue Sky at gunnerblog.bsky.social, also at arseblog.com. And you can also fire in your questions on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. James, I'll give you the honour today.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, we touched on Declan Rice in that first half. We had quite a few questions about him. I thought the wording of this one was interesting. Henry Moulin said, "Goodly morning, guys. Is Declan Rice the most complete midfielder Arsenal have ever had? We've been blessed with talent over the years who can excel across attack and defence, but I can't think of too many who get as close to Rice across all areas.
We also had a question about this on the Discord from Mr. Snrub. He says, I know it's been an Arsenal meme, but did we actually finally replace Vieira when we signed Rice? And there were quite a few questions like that, drawing comparisons between Declan Rice and Patrick Vieira. Listen, I think what's, we talked about his set piece delivery. We talked about his goal. We talked about how hard he works. We talked about how defensively good he is. Maybe the one thing we didn't say is that, generally speaking, there's been a level of consistency to Declan Rice's performances since he joined Arsenal that is remarkable. That the high level at which he plays, it's sort of noticeable when he drops below that. And the fact he drops below that so rarely is kind of amazing, I know maybe last season he had a bit of a slow start to the campaign, but, he'd been, it was a long, hard season for Arsenal. Then there was the summer tournament. I think, was that England going all the way to the final? So you can understand why physically maybe it took him a while to get going last season. But I think this season he's probably gone up a level in terms of that all-round consistency in his game. Like when he takes a bad corner, you're like, whoa, where'd that come from? Genuinely. And I think it is the hardest thing in football is to be at a really high level and do it with almost unmatched consistency. I think that's what separates the great players from the very good players, right? Is the ability to produce something, whether it's a goal, might not be an overall performance, but it might be a goal, an assist, something magic, every week, more or less. And I think Declan Rice isn't that guy necessarily, but what he is somebody who gives you like a 8 out of 10 performance pretty much every week. And sometimes, as we saw against Burnley on Saturday, it's higher than that, Yeah, you'd pay 105 million again for him now if they said you had to, that's just how good he is.
Yeah. It's interesting actually, I think Arsenal have such a richly talented group of players. I was chatting with Amy Lawrence this morning and we were saying how Declan Rice almost has a special quality that I think is virtually irreplaceable. I think there are very few players of his caliber available in world football, and Arsenal were, did the right thing by pushing the boat out to land this one. The Vieira comparisons are interesting. I think obviously what he shares with Patrick is like extraordinary physical gifts, athleticism. He's got great technique as well, albeit in a different way. Vieira was more of a dribbler and an open play passer, whereas with Rice, that outstanding dead ball quality is notable. I think another facet that they share that maybe is talked about less is the personality, is the leadership. Vieira was an inspiration to his teammates, to the people around him. He had that personality that could drag Arsenal through games or affect games in crucial moments. And I think Declan Rice has always had that as well. He had it at West Ham when he was a kind of Roy the Rovers figure for them, scoring big goals, producing big performances, leading them to a trophy. That showed that he was special, and he's carrying that over into Arsenal. And I actually think that is where they are closest, in that they are natural figureheads, natural leaders for a team. Totally understand why that comparison is being drawn. I'm gonna lean on you, Andrew. The initial question said, "Is he our best all-round midfielder?"
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Absolutely. He can defend. He can attack. He can carry the ball. I know what you're saying about Vieira's dribbling. Rice is different in the way he carries the ball but he can carry the ball over distance as well and drive the team up the pitch. He can score goals. He can make goals with his set-piece delivery. Good in the air. Brilliant with his feet. Has the energy of a stallion, whatever you want to call him. He's just unbelievable. The engine is ridiculous. So, yeah, I think he is, by a distance, the most complete midfielder we've had since Vieira.
Since Vieira, right.
Yeah.
I think Vieira, for me, Vieira edges it still but then you look at what Vieira won in his career, and that's the main differentiator between the two. But Rice has an opportunity to change that, starting this season. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about this question, which I thought was kind of interesting, seeing as we touched on the sort of no drama thing, but Gunnar Owl 14.bsky.social says, after 10 games in the current season, does the improved disciplinary record of the team reflect better officiating by referees /PGMOL, or is it a sign of greater control by the team?
Well, do you know what I meant to say? And I forgot to say, if you were doing a direct comparison between Rice and Vieira, that is a distinction. I mean, Vieira had this temper, and particularly in his early days, he was prone to being provoked, right?
Yeah.
Albeit in some pretty unpleasant ways.
Neil Ruddock, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. But, he did have that fuse that would go at times. Rice, with the exception, of course, of his disgraceful kicking the ball away incident against Brighton, which we all remember so fondly, is incredibly level-headed on the pitch. And I think that is characteristic of the way in which the team seems to be evolving. I mean, Gabriel is another who really symbolises that. I know he got a booking in this game in the 95th minute, but the way in which he is now managing himself through matches and situations and, seemingly so much more mature and controlled, is kind of emblematic of the way the team are playing. I mean, when in the period where we were getting players sent off seemingly every other game, we spoke more than once about the reasons that was happening. And some of it was personality and some of it was red mist. But a lot of it was a team that was stretched, being forced into desperate challenges. And we are now the opposite of that. We are so controlled and structured and secure. Something's gone wrong for one of our centre halves even to have to go to ground a lot of the time because they're not being called upon to.
What was it Philippe Auclair used to always say was about Paolo Maldini, that if he used to drag out this quote, if I have to make a tackle, I've made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to get through 90 minutes with his shorts clean, essentially. Yeah, and that's a bit like this Arsenal team at the minute. But they still have you need a balance, right? You still need a bit of needle, a bit of aggression. I actually thought Trossard brought some of that against Burnley. He was embroiled in a right old battle with Kyle Walker. And there was another incident where did he have a little kick out at Laurent at some point in time?
He did, yeah. I saw people talking about that a bit. I've got a question about Trossard now in a minute, but yeah, generally speaking, though, we're very we're not giving them, by them I mean the officials, the opportunity to make decisions which can hurt us.
No.
And I think that is very deliberate. I think that's you don't want to take the edge off players, right? Because to play at this level, you need the edge. You need the competitive edge, but you've got to know where the line is. And I think probably what Mikel Arteta and his coaching staff have drilled into these players is, know where that line is. Do not cross the line in any way, because ultimately it could come back to hurt the team in a game. If you get suspended for a game or 3 games because, you've been a bit naughty or whatever, maybe that costs us points. And I think it's all connected to the approach of this season, to what I was talking about at the end of the first half of the show, where there is this determination to achieve something this season. And part of that will be to maintain a really good disciplinary record. I don't know how we stack up against everybody else so far, but I don't know what the Fair Play League. Do they still do that?
Let's have a look. The discipline stats. ESPN have a table. We're 20th. We are bottom in terms of points accumulated.
Yeah,
no red cards, 10 yellows.
Transfermarkt have a fair play table, 25, 26, and we are top of that table, which is the good place to be. 10 points. Liverpool or Manchester United next, 13, then Leeds, Burnley, Man City, etc., etc. Chelsea, not unexpectedly, down the bottom because they keep getting red cards. But yeah, that tells you a story so far this season, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Very interesting that's spun around like that. You said you had a question about Trossard. Should we do it now?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Okay, here is the question. Well, a couple of questions about Trossard. Desi Ars on the Discord says, what did you think of Leo's performance against Burnley? He's always in the goals and assists, but I'm usually quite annoyed with him during the game, especially for holding onto the ball for too long. And 2_KS says, after another excellent contribution by Trossard, I can't help but feel that the fan base as a whole hasn't connected with him in the same way that it has with much of the rest of the squad, despite his consistent output since he signed. Why do you think that is?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think he's made a big contribution again this season, and he's had to. Madueke's been out. Martinelli's now out. Although Trossard was starting ahead of Martinelli on merit, before the injury. He got the assist, beautiful cross, might well have had a goal, shot cleared off the line.
Linked very well with Calafiori, didn't he? There was one brilliant pass into Calafiori, which I was convinced was going to be a goal. Yeah, that
was really a really lovely move. I think Mikel Arteta sees Trossard and Calafiori as a bit of a pairing, a bit of a partnership at the moment. Maybe sees Martinelli and Lewis-Skelly as an alternative pair. I think he sees a chemistry with Calafiori and Trossard that seems to work. Why haven't people connected with him? It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I have seen him compared favourably by some people to sort of a Freddie Ljungberg figure in that seemingly whatever you may think of his all-round game, and even if he's not necessarily having his best game, he always has that threat where he can pop up with a crucial goal. And his timing and his finishing, like Freddie, are very, very good. I do wonder how much of it is connected to the signing, the way in which it happened. He wasn't the player everyone was excited about. People thought we were going to spend 100 million euros on Mykhailo Mudryk, and Trossard was very...
Trossard should have his own throne for that. If people are upset that
the statue.
Exactly, yeah. He saved a 72 million pound statue of Leo Trossard. Yeah.
If you think about the level of hype over, let's say, the arrival of an Eze or a Gyokeres, like he was never going to get that, right?
Sure.
Because he was never the dream signing for many Arsenal fans. And as well, because of his age, he was 27 when he joined. And I think there's always been this slight sense of maybe he's just sort of passing through, that he was kind of a holding player until we got the real left winger. I think that's been part of the kind of discourse around him. I don't know. But I think he's so valuable. And like Mikel Arteta, I think absolutely loves him, really wanted him to stay, really wanted him to get that pay rise. And I think that decision's been vindicated at this point in time. Yeah,
I agree. 3 goals, 3 assists this season. He's up there with our best performers in that regard. I think I can sort of understand why he frustrates people as well, though, because, I think there's maybe a first half versus second half illustration of that here, where in the first half I thought he was excellent, like really, really good. Second half, like most of the team, wasn't quite at the same level. I think what it is with Trossard as well is that he backs himself in difficult situations. He will try difficult things pretty much all the time. And sometimes I think he might just be better served doing the simple thing. Just every so often, do the simple thing rather than the hard thing. But, there's a risk reward to that. He does try things. He tries to make things happen. So I get to an extent why he might frustrate people at times. I just think there's a sort of an output to him that's fantastic, and has been since he arrived. The goals stack up well. The assists stack up well. He's a very available player for us as well. Touching wood, of course, that he is sort of always there. So look, I like him a lot. I think we talked about him earlier in the season. We talked about how, Arsenal would have been stupid to sell him if there was an offer from Turkey, after the window closed, because ultimately he is a very important player, a very valuable player, somebody who gives you a lot. Maybe he's frustrating at times, but I can live with that, to be honest, because of what he delivers. So,
yeah, I think so too. I think, and 100 Premier League appearances, I believe, up against Burnley.
There you go.
Well, Wise Mark on Discord says Andre Harriman-Anus or Mikel Merino up front tomorrow against Slavia Prague.
I mean, I think it'll probably be Mikel Merino, I would imagine. There was another question I had about this, because we're sort of making the assumption that Gyokeres, might not be fit for this one, or it might be a risk. On Blue Sky, Eric Bolden said if Gyokeres isn't available till after the international break, would you start Merino or try Trossard or Nwaneri up front? I think we know what Arteta will do. I think it will be Merino, because we just don't have the numbers in the attacking third if Gyokeres is absent. No Martinelli, no Madueke. Nwaneri is the 9. Is that too early? Arteta talked about him as a potential number 9, but
he did. But he also talked last week, didn't he, about seeing him in this sort of central midfield role, and I think there's a real sort of concerted effort, it seems, to focus his playing time there. I mean, I suppose this is a special circumstance, but I felt like when he was talking about that, he was sort of talking about quite far into the future. I think personally, I wouldn't risk Gyokeres in Prague. I think we're going to need him on Saturday at the Stadium of Light. And I think we might have enough to win in Prague without him. I suppose Trossard is an option, but then who are you putting on the left?
Yeah. I mean, do you think this is a game where Arteta can rotate quite heavily? I mean, there's no Zubimendi because he's suspended. So is this a sort of game where Christian Norgard starts in midfield and maybe Nwaneri starts in midfield and Ben White and either Lewis-Skelly or Piero Nkapie at left back? Mosquera comes in. Is that taking too much for granted? Or is this exactly why we built this big squad? That games like this, ahead of what's going to be a difficult game against Sunderland at the weekend, and this one, let's not forget, it was Saturday afternoon and it's going to be Tuesday, so it's a relatively short period. It's not like Saturday, Wednesday kind of thing. We talked about, or maybe we didn't, obviously, but talked on the Arsecast on Thursday after the Brighton game, how it was important to get minutes into the legs of people like Ben White and Norgard and Nkapie, etc., etc. So this is another opportunity to do that if and when we need those players for, in inverted commas, more important games.
Yeah, I'd like to see a few changes. I think Eze might be one who is due for a rest. He obviously was the only guy who stayed in the team for the Carabao game. And I just wonder if this might be an opportunity to give him a break, maybe play Ethan, as you suggest. And, I think probably Merino up top. I thought Harman and Anus did pretty well against Brighton, but the Champions League is a different kettle of fish, an away game as well. I think it's a big ask. I think, he'll probably travel and be with the group because the under-19s have got a game anyway. But I think starting this one might be a bit soon for him.
Yeah.
So, I think I would go Merino. I think I would probably bring in Norgard for Zubimendi, maybe Ethan for Eze. Maybe swap one of the fullbacks or potentially both of the fullbacks.
Here's another question while we're talking about this. Troop says, what do you make of Nkapie coming off the bench ahead of Lewis-Skelly? Is it just getting minutes into his legs, or is it a shift in the pecking order?
Good question. I think you could... I think right now it's the former, but I am a little suspicious of it being the latter too, in that, when he signed, I thought, well, this is not a guy who's come here to be a backup, or I this is a starting level player. And I know Myles is too, and Ricky Calafiori is too, but yeah, when you hear Mikel Arteta talk about Pierre Nkapie, it's very clear how highly he thinks of him. He's very effusive about him. And interestingly, he uses a lot of the same words that his very good friend and former Leverkusen manager, Xabi Alonso, also uses. So I'd imagine they've had quite a lot of conversations about this player. Yeah,
they did. Yeah, he did say they talked before the signing, yeah.
There you go. And they both have described Nkapie as a warrior, which feels very, very specific. So is it shifting the pecking order? I don't think it's... I think it's too soon to say. And he's a player who needs minutes, and it's a great opportunity to give him minutes. I think fundamentally he's probably seen as a more defensively secure option than Myles, and that's probably why we saw him when we did, just sort of closing a game out. But Myles has already shown this season in little glimpses that he has a lot to offer from that position. I mean, obviously set up Ethan the other night. What was the game where he produced a brilliant assist running through the middle of the pitch?
Atletico Madrid.
There you go, Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of options in that particular position.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to wait and see. What do you think?
Again, like you, I think it's too soon to say. I do think having three players of the caliber of Calafiori and Nkapie and Lewis-Skelly, 3 into 1 doesn't go. Something's got to give somewhere along the way, and I don't quite know what it is or how it plays out. I mean, I think it's probably right to say it doesn't mean that if Nkapie and Calafiori become the two regular left backs or whatever, it doesn't mean that Lewis-Skelly's Arsenal career is over, because I think there is scope for him to play elsewhere, and that's something we've discussed before as well.
Yeah, I mean, would you have any interest in seeing him? Gunnar Getcher said, with Zubimendi suspended for the midweek fixture against Slavia Prague, would you rather see Norgard or Myles Lewis-Skelly in the number 6 position?
I think at this moment in time, Norgard, that seems a more like-for-like change. I don't mean to say that isn't a job that Myles could do at some point in the future. I think where I'd be more interested to see Myles is maybe in the left 8 position, I think that probably suits him a little more than the 6 right now, because he is still only 18, 19 years of age. I think what we've seen from him on the ball put him in that position. I think it would be very interesting. So if you do need to give, or feel like you want to give Declan Rice a break, or you want to play Nwaneri and maybe Lewis-Skelly together ahead of Norgard. I don't know. But, I think that would be more, it feels more natural to me than putting Lewis-Skelly as a 6 right now anyway.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, I've seen him play that position for the 19s as a number 6, and I probably would, if I was picking the team, I probably would be more curious to see that than Norgard. But then I feel like, are we going to be having a conversation in 3 years about why was Norgard never held dear? Like in the same way we are about Trossard. Is it just because I have that feeling of being, he's kind of fine, but not like a dream signing or anything? So I'm sort of fundamentally a bit underwhelmed. Whereas with Lewis-Skelly, I'm massively invested because he's an academy boy.
Sure.
I've got a bias there. I don't know. I mean, there is a question as well here that I spoke about the lack of drama and at the risk of sounding like we're trying to inject some. Mark Settle says Timber is having a storming season. Ditto Calafiori. As a result, White and Myles Lewis-Skelly rarely play. White didn't come on versus Burnley. MLS came on in injury time. With a World Cup looming, how much do you fear they'll look for a loan or worse in January? Or is it a case that there'll be injuries and cup games and that will be enough?
I don't fear that at all in January. Absolutely not. No way. I don't think any player...
They're probably quite like... Especially if there's a chance of a Premier League medal.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Are you all right there?
But I mean...
Oh, sorry. I thought you fell off your chair or something.
No. I was just thinking like... that seems obvious to me, Premier League winners medal. But playing in a World Cup, like for a player...
Does Ben White really want to play for England in a World Cup?
Evidence would suggest no.
Yeah.
No, I think he is open to it now. But, in some ways, I think he'd also have to understand that he's not really been part of the group. And I think it's going to be very difficult for him at this stage to get in there. But Myles say, he is in a fight to be the number 1 starting left back for England at the World Cup. Thomas Tuchel says domestic form matters, playing time matters.
Sure.
I don't know. So you think you're not worried about January? You think
no? I'm not worried about January. I mean, I think if come the summer those guys are peripheral, then I think you have to worry, just because it's inevitable that players are going to want to play, and if there's no room for them in the team, then they'll consider their options. I just think this season of all seasons, I don't really see anybody within this group, World Cup or not, agitating for a move away from a team as good as this, because you very rarely will have the chance to be part of something as good as this. You can go and play every week for somebody, and maybe that's enough for you. Maybe that's satisfying. Maybe that's just everything you need. But I think the fact that you're in a team as competitive as this, is quite rare. So I don't really worry about it in January. I do think there is... I think particularly... Go on.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think especially for Myles as well, having been at Arsenal so long, being an Arsenal supporter, being a local lad, I think it would be a huge wrench to leave at any time, but particularly what could be halfway through a very successful season. I almost think if there's a risk that he goes at some point in the future, he'd almost want to make sure he'd experience success with Arsenal first, if that makes sense.
I agree. And I think as well, we just have to maybe recognise that, the age of these two players, or the age of Myles rather, and we're sort of lumping Ethan Nwaneri in there as well, as sort of an example where you have your Norgard, you have your Marino, players who are maybe more trusted by the manager at this point because of their experience, right?
Yeah.
But who are there to do a job in the medium to short term to then hopefully create the pathway for more experienced Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri to make their mark at Arsenal. There's a development process, and I think this could be part of it if we have Nkapie and if we have Calafiori battling it out for left back, because they're the players that Mikel Arteta really sees as the ones he wants in that position, there has to be a decision about Myles, about whether or not you repurpose him into midfield, which is where he grew up and started playing, or whether it's elsewhere. But for now, I'm not that worried about it. I think it's I think it's fine.
And interestingly, like if it is to be midfield, you look at the age of Norgard, you look at the age of Marino potentially, and you think, okay, there could be a real opportunity there. But we will have to wait and see. I do think these conversations, by the way, around, let's say Lewis-Skelly or Ben White and Ethan too, to an extent, like, are inevitable. And the reason they are inevitable is because they're really good players. Like they would get in, every other Premier League team?
More or less, yeah.
Maybe one or two, they wouldn't, but, they walk into most teams. Myles is a starter for England. So
what's his
always, when they're not playing,
yeah,
there's going to be people looking at that.
What's his competition for left back for England?
Well, Jed Spence played there in the last game, I believe. There's Lewis Hall at Newcastle. He's just close to coming back from injury himself. There might be others that I'm forgetting. I mean, Luke Shaw is playing for United, but he's playing more in the 3, isn't he, as a left-sided centre-half. I think Myles is good enough and unique enough that he could keep that England place, even with relatively few opportunities at Arsenal. Because I don't see another player who can do exactly what he does. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like if you decide, if Tuchel decides, I want an inverting left back who can drop into midfield and be a playmaker from deep, well, Myles is the outstanding candidate.
Yeah.
So that may work in his favour. We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. Here's a question from RG, Geezy Peas. .bsky.social. If you had to give up one of set-piece goals or clean sheets for the rest of the season, which would you choose and why?
Mikel's 2 beautiful children. You must choose one. Set-piece goals or clean sheets? That's tough, actually.
No, it's not. I don't think it is.
You don't think it is? I mean, as I always say, you can keep 38 clean sheets and be relegated. But it's never happened. I think I would give up the set-piece goals. I think.
Yeah, me too.
I think we have enough in other areas that if we keep the clean sheets, especially with the little lead that we have, I think we'd win enough games to be right there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But is that your rationale?
That was mine, yeah. Clean sheets always give you a chance of winning games, even with one goal. So that one seemed obvious to me. And, we don't want David Raya having his train spotting moments, No.
I wonder if he remembers how to save a shot. Do we know? I have this vision of like someone having a shot on target and him just watching the ball go in the net and then be like, oh yeah,
fuck, I knew there was something I was supposed to do.
Putting his book down and then being like,
sitting there in his Eames chair,
exactly,
glass of brandy beside him. Oh
yeah, I know. Have to put his pipe out and then and then get back to it.
Yeah.
It's so funny because like this time a year ago, he was making saves left, right and centre, bailing Arsenal out at times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now he's in his armchair. Lovely stuff.
Long may it last.
Long may it last. I mean, we're going to get this question every week, I think, but I'll just throw it to you for the latest on your view on it. Varys G, who says, good morning, gents. What do you think about Man City's threat after their most recent win against Bournemouth? Erling Haaland seems to be in robot mode. Will City's reliance on Haaland come back to bite them, or will they grow into the season?
John Boy 152 said, instead of praying for Odegaard to get fit, should I be praying for Haaland to get injured?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people say we rely on set pieces. They need to look at the proportion of City's goals that are scored by Erling Haaland. That's real reliance.
He's scored 13 of their 20 Premier League goals so far this season.
Yes, I believe no one... I think he's got 13, and the next... I think they've had 2 own goals.
Yeah, Steve from Burnley. He got 2 own goals.
And I think that's their next top scorer. I think everyone else has got 1 for City.
Well, that tells you quite a story. I guess it's sort of just inevitable, though, to an extent. When you have a player as good as he is, as clinical and lethal as he is, that he is going to score most of your goals. But, you know...
What's interesting is he does miss chances. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, he could have had a hat-trick yesterday. He went through on goal and didn't finish. But they just can't... No one can seem to stop him just running through. Like, he's absolutely devastating in those positions.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable player, and I think we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. And you know, if there was an idea that maybe he was a little untidy in other aspects of his game, I don't think he's ever going to be a guy who you know makes 50, 60 passes at 100% or anything like that. But I think technically his game has really improved at Man City as well. So it is kind of scary. It does present City with a problem if they lose him for any reason, though, whether it's injury or suspension or whatever it might be. But a bit like the Terminator discussion from part 1, he is essentially indestructible. So I don't really see that happening. So yeah, he is something that we are going to have to contend with. Slightly... linked to that is a question from Jack, that jackrice.bsky.social. He said, in order to win the league, do we need a player to go supernova? I don't think any team has ever won the league without a standout player. I think that player is Saka for us, but so far he hasn't been able to sustain good form. So I don't think we're going to get somebody who can do what Haaland does for Man City, but do we need someone to kind of come close to that?
Maybe. I mean, I saw a bit of criticism of Saka after the game. People felt he was below his usual standards.
He missed that good chance, you know. I think that was it, you know.
Yeah. I think he'll be frustrated he didn't score. I'm not sure we do need that necessarily. I think we're proving that right now. I mean, I think there's a case, by the way, that Gabriel is having that sort of season. I really do. It's just different for a centre-half, and your name's not on the score sheet quite as much. But I think he is having a supernova period in his football career. What do you think? Do you think we need that kind of explosion in attacking areas?
I just think maybe we don't need somebody to go supernova, but I think what we need is somebody to get on a run of scoring. You know, someone like Saka, like Gyokeres. I don't think it'll be Trossard, because I think that there is a sort of relative inconsistency with him. You know, I think you can only expect so much from him, but I think someone like Saka, if we can get Bukayo Saka into good form, good goal scoring form, he doesn't need to do what Haaland does, but I think you do need somebody to contribute on the regular, if that makes sense, to sort of win you those games. So like Freddie Ljungberg, remember that season where towards the end of the season, when we needed a goal, there he was. He'd just pop up with those goals. It does feel like every season needs one player to just, even for a short period of time, hit a level of consistency in terms of end product. But then I think we've got players all over the pitch who can score, you know. Zubamendi scored, Timber scored, Calafiori can score, Gabriel scores, Rice scores, Odegaard, we know it's in his locker, Saka, Gyokeres, Trossard, Martin, you know, there's enough there, I think, to maybe offset that if it doesn't happen. But maybe we do need to get a couple of those forward players back. And hopefully, I think Mikel Arteta sounded relatively confident, didn't he, that after the interlull, we might have one or two of those players back.
I think so, yeah. Odegaard, Havertz, Madueke could all potentially be in contention for that North London derby, which would be a huge, huge boost. Just on City, by the way, just scanning ahead in their fixtures, it's a really interesting period for them coming up. Obviously, they play Dortmund in the Champions League on Wednesday night, but then their next two league games either side of the international break are Liverpool at home on Sunday the 9th, and then on Saturday the 22nd of November away at Newcastle at St James's Park. So, you know, on the same, is that the same day we face Spurs in the North London derby?
Yes, I think so.
We're the following day, we're the 23rd. So that first weekend back could be a weekend with some significant ramifications.
HotelCalafiori.bsky.social asks, would a Liverpool win next weekend be better than a draw?
That is a good question.
I don't believe it would.
So a Liverpool win would put them on 21 points, closing the gap. Well, could be 4, could be 7, depending on whether or not we've beaten Sunderland. No, a draw's better for me.
Yeah, me
a
too.
City win, I think, is the worst outcome actually for us.
I don't rule Liverpool out by any means, but I think City are, at this point anyway, the one team I'd be most worried about.
And we know historically they are not a team or a manager you want to sort of build up ahead of steam.
No.
I was kind of, you know, do you see Pep in his post-match press conference? He was asked about the title race and he deflected it and said, well, we have to see if Arsenal will ever concede a goal first or something like that.
Maybe one day Arsenal will concede a goal again. Something like that.
Yeah, it was very deftly done, actually. And I sort of, it kind of made me shudder a little bit because I was like, this is where he's really comfortable. Like, you know, when he's able to kind of push the suggestion away, be a little bit of the stalking horse, get to that halfway point of the season, and then just go hell for leather. We've seen it so many times. So, yeah, I think a City win would be potentially ominous. But let's see, it's a really interesting one. Liverpool obviously got their win back, thanks in part to Emi Martinez. But they still look some way short of their best.
I was just wondering
discuss
about
that, no doubt, in the 30, Andrew.
Yes, we will. We'll talk about all the weekend's Premier League action. I was just thinking about the phrase "stalking horse" when you said it there, and where it comes from. Because you very rarely see a real life horse stalking. It's not really in their nature, but apparently it's
not many convictions.
Screen
Is it to do with the Trojan horse?
A screen traditionally made in the shape of a horse behind which a hunter may stay concealed when stalking prey. So the prey is like, there's a horse. Nothing to worry about here. Everything's fine.
Oh no, the horse has got a gun.
It's blown my fucking balls off. Shit.
I'm looking at a picture of a stalking horse and I'm going to describe it. It's from the Wikipedia page for the phrase stalking horse. It's a man with a rifle carrying what looks like sort of the hull of a boat, but it's basically a giant wooden horse that he's hiding behind. It's quite a surreal sight, to be honest with you.
Yes, I guess because horses are not considered that threatening to prey.
I guess.
Yeah.
But this, you know, that's Pep Guardiola crouching behind a wooden horse
in the shape of Erling Haaland.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Haaland looks devastatingly good, and that will be enough against many teams.
Yeah,
that will be enough. Cherky as well is showing some signs. I think he's a really lovely player.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but he's good fun, and he had a couple of assists at the weekend, and seems to be finding some rhythm. So, yeah, I mean, it could be quite the title race potentially.
Imagine if horses were carnivorous. We'd be in a lot of trouble.
That's a horror movie waiting to happen, surely. Like The Birds, but it's horses.
Horse. The new film from... Who's that guy that does horror films?
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, but then that would just be in the end, the horse is not actually a horse. It's a zebra or some fucking bullshit
Pep
twist.
Guardiola disguised.
The other guy, though, the Pan's Labyrinth guy, he could make a really scary horse movie, I reckon.
Del Toro,
Guillermo del Toro. Oof. Yeah, don't like to think about carnivorous horses. Okay, I think we should.
I want to see his Frankenstein, by the way. That's out.
Yeah. That looks good, actually. That looks good. Might try and catch that in the week. Who knows? Right, let's leave it there. As James said, we will discuss all the weekend's Premier League action in the 30 later this afternoon over on Patreon. If you want to join us, it's patreon.com/Arseblog. For now, though, thank you as ever for listening. Thanks for being with us, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.